you have been tolerated, not Americanized or integrated. You've never been integrated. Integration is just a means, intermediate means to deal with you Negroes, why white people decide what to ultimately do with you, how to dispose of you, because your talents and your labor is not necessary anymore. There are not enough jobs here for white people. You were never brought here to compete or enjoy the benefits of American society. However, you are here, 30 million strong, and white people are dealing with you now until they decide how to finally dispose of you, this unnecessary labor. So don't be fooled. You've never been integrated, never will be, never intended to be. Because if you were integrated, take a look at this fool. If you were integrated, as they say you were integrated, and all of you conservative, ignorant fools, foolish black conservatives, nigga, if you was integrated and truly integrated since 1964, you would have exemplified the same development that you did in your segregated communities. And that development would be to rise to the top. Now, if you look at football, niggas have been integrated into white colleges. And now if you look at TV, you see nature has taken its natural course. And you look at the fields on the football team, you see that both offenses and defenses on both teams, on these white teams, are totally dominated by black players. Now, that's integration, and that shows that when black people are integrated and allowed to compete without the imposition of white racism, when black people are allowed to integrate and allowed to compete equally with white people, they will naturally rise to the top. That's seen every Saturday when you look at college football, when you see black players totally dominating the field of play on these predominantly white football teams. However, that example, that situation is not as simple as it seems, because black people, these black football players are allowed to play and dominate. These black football players are allowed to dominate on these white football programs because they are providing an economic benefit that only benefits these predominantly white colleges. These black football players are allowed to dominate. These black football players are allowed to rise to the top, compete, and their natural talent is allowed to be shown and rise to the top because it benefits only the predominantly white football programs. It is an economic benefit that contributes to the continued perpetuation of white supremacy. These black football players will not be allowed, have never been allowed to compete against predominantly white. These black football players, when they were members of predominantly black football programs, were never allowed to participate against predominantly white football programs because the economic benefit would have gone to the predominantly black football programs. But while black football players are allowed to rise to the top, black football players are allowed to compete, black football players are allowed to integrate these predominantly white football programs, because these black football players are providing an economic benefit only for these predominantly white institutions. Predominantly white institutions are the only one that are benefiting from the participation of these black football players. Black football players being totally integrated into predominantly white football programs, and by allowing black football players to compete and naturally rise to the top, provides an economic benefit only to predominantly white football programs. Because when these same black football players were part of the segregated black college football programs, they were not allowed to play against predominantly white football programs, because the economic benefit would have gone to the predominantly black football program for the benefit of the black community. But now that these Negroes are allowed to compete on white football teams, they've been integrated into white football teams. Now they're not a threat to the economic existence of these predominantly white football programs and the continuation of white supremacy. So the black football players being totally integrated into these white programs aids and abets and contributes to the continued perpetuation of white supremacy. Now, that explains the existence of integration that is allowed to happen in regards to sports. Football, college football is an example of integration that is allowed, the integration when it allows black football players to rise to the top. College football exemplifies integration. College football is an example of integration that is allowed to happen, where it allows black people to go unfettered in most cases, except for the quarterback position. Black football players are allowed to compete. Today, however, when they first were integrated, they were discriminated against and unnaturally held back and racially discriminated against because of ignorance. But physical attributes are a lot more harder to hide than mental discrimination. So over time, black football players have, by nature, have come to dominate the college football scene. However, black people have not been integrated, not been allowed to be integrated into the political and economic and social culture of America. When it comes to business and corporate America, black people are not allowed to rise to the top as they do in football. Black people in America have not been allowed to demonstrate their natural ability, which would manifest itself in their domination of business, industry, and all aspects of American culture. Because if they were allowed to compete, if black people were allowed to compete, if black people were allowed to be integrated, they would naturally take over every industry in America. And white people know that. That's why they introduced civil rights, the Civil Rights Act, to destroy you niggers' capability of developing independent industries that would destroy their industries. They integrated you Negroes. They destroyed your separate industry and integrated you Negroes into their industry. Now, all your energy and effort is expended on the development of their industry. You're not allowed, as an integrated Negro, to open up your own industry and develop it to the point where you now compete against your white competitor. You were not allowed, when you were living in a segregated society, to develop your own industry to the point where it competed against a similar parallel white industry. That's why civil rights was developed, to eliminate your superior competition. Now, white people would have defeated their purpose if they now allow you to integrate and within their system develop your own independent industry that overtakes their industry. You see, You are only allowed to compete in an integrated society to the point where your contribution is made exclusively for the benefit of white industry. Your contribution and energy is only allowed to be integrated for the exclusive benefit of white businesses, white industry, and the perpetuation of white superiority. I hope you Negroes understand what I'm saying. It's not that hard. You niggas were not allowed to compete in a segregated society and develop your own black nationalism and just go crazy and start international relationships with black African countries and develop a black Wall Street independent of white Wall Street and eventually take over America. They're not going to allow you, they're not going to integrate you niggas into their white nationalism, white society, and let you do what you could not do in a black nationalistic society. When you niggas was living in a segregated society, you were practicing black nationalism. White folk forced Negroes to practice black nationalism. White doing segregation after slavery. When niggas were put in separated communities, they were forced to practice black nationalism. They were forced to accumulate resources and develop a society and businesses and industries for the exclusive benefit of black people. You were forced by law, segregation laws, to do that. Then white folks saw that, shit. These niggas, we always knew they were superior because they built our society that we couldn't build. But now we forced them niggas to live in separated societies. Now these niggas can govern themselves and they can build a society that will overcome our society. So they stopped that. They stopped allowing you niggas to stop practicing black nationalism. We cannot allow these Negroes to develop a separate society. We cannot allow these Negroes to practice black nationalism. We practicing white nationalism right next to them. We're taking all the resources and using them for the exclusive benefit of white society. That's white nationalism. We cannot allow these niggas to do the same thing. So 1964 they said, well, we got to bring these niggas out of this black nationalism because there's only one nationalism can exist in the same place at the same time. Can't have black nationalism existing right alongside white nationalism because one will eventually destroy the other. The stronger will eventually rise to the top and destroy the weaker. And we see that, black nationalism, black segregated communities are the stronger communities that eventually, if left alone, will destroy and overcome white communities and white nationalism. So we got to destroy these black communities and the black nationalism going on in these communities. Bring these Negroes into our white societies and our white nationalism and have their energies, times, and efforts expended towards the exclusive benefit of our white nationalistic society. Marcus Garvey tried the black nationalism when he started that shipping industry. He had the first black cruise ship line. And this nigga was finna start trading with Africa and all the Caribbean countries, and he was getting on a real serious black international economic development program. Now, that was in the early 1900s. So white people said, y'all niggas live over there and we don't care what you do. But then when Marcus Garvey started to buying ships that competed against white shipping systems, said, wait, these niggas getting too big. We got to destroy Marcus Garvey. So of course they got Uncle Tom, slave, who betrayed Marcus Garvey, and they destroyed him. So you see that white folk will do, by any means necessary, will not allow black people to practice black nationalism in any means or form, because they know that if you Negroes practice black nationalism the same way that white people practice white nationalism, that you niggas will eventually overtake them. So you see why black people are in the conditions they're in today. They're in the condition they're in today because it is by design. It is not a random occurrence that black people are living the way they are living today. We see Chinese people come over here to America. We see Vietnamese people come over here. We see Mexican people come over here. We see all types of foreign nationals come to America, and in 5 years they own half your city. You see Arabs come over here. They own all of the convenience stores in your neighborhood. We see Indians come over here. They own all your gas stations in your neighborhood, in the black neighborhood. You see all these foreign nationals come to America, and in 5 years they own every business in your community. You've been here for 500 years and don't own nothing but a crack pipe. How is this possible? It is not by random design. It's not because you're stupid and ignorant as black people. It is not because you're inferior as black people. The reason you're living in the condition you're living in as a group of people is because your culture and your existence is an existence that has been created by European architects. Your poverty, your education, your miseducation is by design of European architects. Every generation of white people has one objective: to keep you niggas blind, ignorant, and impoverished, only for their particular generation. Every generation has its own plan, and all you Negroes got to do is read and start thinking, and you can see the pattern that has existed for the last 400 years. Left alone, you niggas could have been out of poverty and ruling America and the world 10 years after slavery. But as you can, if you see the pattern, you niggers have always developed and rose to the top when left alone to develop, but you were not, and violently oppressed, violently raped, murdered, and robbed up until 1964, when you developed economically and socially. The pattern is there. All you gotta do is look at it. Niggas have accumulated land. They have built businesses. They have created inventions. Never got any credit for it. Never made any money off of it. The formula for Coca-Cola was created by a black woman. Look who making all the money today. Traffic light. Niggas ain't making no money on traffic light. Man-made traffic light. Yeah, you go on and on and on. Go on to YouTube and see all the thousands of inventions black people have created, but no black families today are reaping the economic benefit of these creations. Westinghouse family making all the money, got billions of dollars a day because of electricity. Look at all these, you know, when a white man get a creation, his family for the next 5,000 years will reap the economic benefit of it. George Washington Carver created everything from a damn peanut, but none of his family is reaping the economic benefit from any of his creations. Oh. Look at the pattern, people. Look at the pattern. Now that you Negroes have been integrated, been fooled, bamboozled, run amok to believe that you have been integrated. What the white man has done, white Europeans have done by design of integration, is to destroy your black neighborhood, your black community, your black culture that you had, and your black unity and any identity as a black people that you had in these segregated communities. They've destroyed that mindset and have created by design a new Negro mindset.